industrial court order mandating teachers to report for school today.
Yeah, we had 26 people weighing in on our poll this morning. 16 of you said yes, you do agree. 10 said no. 16 said yes, they agree with the injunction filed by the state. 10 of you said no. All right, so that's our poll for today. And it continues all the way up until tomorrow, September 27th.
Yeah. All right, we will give you the final results of our morning poll. All right, while we wait for Mr. Peter George to get on board via our Zoom link. All right, I'll take a quick break and be right back.
Every Sunday, enjoy brunch at the Cascadia Hotel for an introductory price of only $99. Brunch time runs from 10:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Kids 5 and under, accompanied by an adult, eat for free. So bring the entire family and enjoy in this delicious feast every Sunday at the Cascadia Hotel. Don't miss out. Call 235-4554 and make your reservation now. Brunch at the Cascadia Hotel for an introductory price of only $99. Special conditions apply.
Do you need to get work done on your vehicle? Look no further than the Auto Champions, Champlain Auto Services. From vehicle inspection to shutdown service, they do it all. Champlain Auto Services, great mechanics and technicians, exceptional customer service with accessories galore. Champlain Auto Services is your one-stop shop. They are your auto champions. You name it, they can fix it. Champlain Auto Services, Eastern Main Road, opposite Carib. Call 662-6545 and like us on Facebook. Champlain Auto Services. We do it all.
All right, thank you so much, Champlain Auto Services. All right, our guest is going to log in a second or two. Yeah, he's gonna log on shortly. Rajiv Diptee apologized this morning. We had him on. But something has come up and he can't make it on this morning. We do have Mr. Robin Naraynsingh. He's on after 8 o'clock and he's the president of the Petro Dealers Association. All right. I should also tell you that during the course of the week, we do have a lot of people coming on. Tomorrow we do have Mariano Brown and Mr. Kevin Ramnarain. Wednesday, we do have Karen Nunez de Shiran, Vasant Barath. Thursday, we have Roger Hossain, Valmiki Arjun, and Brian Manning. And that's so far what we've got for the week right here on Power 102, the Power Breakfast Show, Power 102 Digital. All right? Yeah. What was your budget for last year? What was the amount, Paul? You remember that?
Just over $52 billion.
Wow. 52 billion, you said, eh?
Yeah, $52.4 billion.
52.4 billion? Jeez, I need this.
Yeah. Well, it has been brought down significantly. 10 years ago, it was like $63 billion. So.
Yeah, I remember that. Wow. That's a big
I expect it to go back up a bit, to be honest. There's an election looming.
So you say 55?
I say about 55, 56.
Yeah.
And they have a little more leeway. I mean, they have more debt, but they have more leeway in terms of the $8 billion additional dollars expected from the energy commodity prices windfall.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a bit more wiggle room. I expect that a little bit of the subsidy will be shaved off again. So prices at the pump are going to go up a bit, which is going to reflect in the prices of goods and services generally.
Reflect on everything.
So
if I have to read what was said in the spotlight on the economy recently,
mm-hmm.
And if I have to try to read the mood of the country as it is now, I believe that we're going to have a bigger budget. But I also believe they're not going to do that gas thing now. I think it's just going to send a completely wrong message if they go down that road. I know that they alerted us that they have to remove another $1 billion, I think, of the subsidy, because the subsidy is currently just over $2 billion, and they will try to bring it down to $1 billion. But if I have to read the mood of the place right now, I don't know that now they're going to do it now. I think this is going to be a feel-good budget, is my opinion. You know, especially going into a local election, and especially with what's happening in the country lately. I don't see them adding any burdens on the public, on the population right now. That's how I see it, and that's what I hope for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Thank you so much there, Dorothy. And let's say good morning to Mr. Peter George. How are you, my friend?
Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. George. How are you this morning?
Morning. I'm on this iPad here, and it seems to have an angle on my face, and I don't know why. I'm trying to turn this way, and it's still not working. So
You're fine.
yeah, you're gonna see my bad side.
Unfortunately, your parents didn't do a bad job, so the iPad is not affecting you too much.
Well, there you go, Paul.
How are you?
Good. How are you all this morning?
Not bad at all, not bad. Of course, you're joined. Richard Ragoobarsingh will join us in a second. We do have Wendell, Stephen, and of course, Paul Richards. And Ruben is in there somewhere. So good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right. So a lot of discussion leading up to this evening's presentation of the 2022-23 fiscal package. I know you are one of the prominent businessmen in the country who has had to navigate quite a tumultuous last 2.5 years, keeping your businesses afloat and your employees employed. What do you assess as the state of play now, and what do you think will help business persons like yourself and I guess small and medium-sized businesses, which if they are helps your business, because then they can drive customers to your businesses, because they work interconnectedly.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I believe we had this discussion also during the pandemic. On one of my central themes, which was not really well received in the wider kind of echo chamber, media population, was that COVID was going to end. Whether it was 3 months or whether it was 6 months or whether it was 9 months, we were going to overcome this pandemic. And the question really was, what do we want to see post-pandemic? We have to make decisions based on what's going to happen then, not just, in the moment that we're living in. Now, that came across to some commentators as insensitive, but the fact remains that the decisions that we had taken back then did not take into consideration what we're experiencing now, what I'm calling the post-pandemic hangover. So the economic environment that we're in now is an exceptionally hard one, right? On top of the fact that, there were massive closures and huge restrictions, and all the things that we went through during COVID, we're now faced with this specter of inflation, which it has nothing to do with us, right? When I say there's no causation from Trinidad and Tobago, but we are where we are. And what is it affecting the most, gentlemen? Food, right? And adjuncts to food, transportation, and all of the things that are making food prices higher. So we're there now, right? We're there now. You're seeing this, I want to say, valley between corporate Trinidad and Tobago and Main Street Trinidad and Tobago, where you have corporate profits ballooning, the bank profits ballooning, and you have the government taking that as an indication that the economy is very healthy, right? Which is exactly the opposite, because you're getting a concentration of wealth and success into the upper parts of the economy and society. And you're seeing Main Street Trinidad and Tobago, there's still major closures going on. A lot of, you call them mom and pop, we call them SMEs and small businesses, which is the backbone of any economy. People who survive on hard work and enterprise, they're closing up shop, or they have closed up shop and have not returned. So we're in a difficult situation.
So are you saying, is what you've said, does it encapsulate mean that there is a wider wealth disparity in the country now?
Well, I think there always has been. There always has been. And I think the difference, income inequality is a natural state of the free market. right? I mean, it's just what it is. And once that income or that wealth is gained meritoriously, then it shouldn't matter. We should praise those people. Wow, look at what Paul Richards did. Look at what John Smith did, right? So there's always been that disparity. But the issue really in Trinidad, and I mean, largely throughout the world, is income inequality, right? And the question remains, during COVID, I am not knocking, for example, the supermarkets and the masses of the world, but it just so happened that the environment was one that channeled all the business through there. And by extension, post-pandemic, all the guys that were a lot of them that were played an important role, they have been shut out because of the environment. So the income disparity, again, is something that exists everywhere. And as a result, I call myself, an unfettered capitalist. You have no issue with that. So I think the country should move away from that type of, and I know you're not saying it from an inflammatory way, they should move away from the idea of income inequality and disparity. That should be welcomed, because that...
But is the answer to that just increasing wages? And I asked that in the context of the state can increase wages of the mainstream, as you call the mainstream population, but we have to consider that in the context of, is the country increasing its revenue base? Is the country increasing its output of products and services, goods and services, to afford that and to move us into a different level of operation economically?
No. I mean, the reality is you're taxing the producers, and that's fine. That's fine from a fundamental perspective. But I'll ask you a question, everyone in the panel. If it is that the state of Trinidad and Tobago, which I have said publicly recently, the state of Trinidad and Tobago has collapsed, right? It collapsed long ago. And it doesn't mean the country's going to stop running. It just means basic service, essential service. We see what happens with all-day power grids. We see what happens with inability to manage schools and violence. And of course, the crime. The state of Trinidad and Tobago has collapsed, right? But putting that aside, if it is that there was functionality across the spectrum of what the basic, hardworking citizen, no matter the income strata, if those things in the country functioned, all of them function at a reasonably efficient level, then the dollar that individual earned today would have far more buying power than it does. So what we do is we don't engage in any type of real meaningful structural reforms, right? And what we do is we continue to tax the producers who are having a very hard time because of the something as simple as now with the spate of crime. Customers also, but staff are clamoring for more security. You have to put generators in your business. You have to have massive water tanks. You have to have repair and maintenance budgets for potholes, vehicles getting destroyed, and so on and so on and so forth. If the state performed its function, and I've always said, governing is not sexy, Paul. Governing is not, it's boring. It really is selfless service to a population. And that's why the whole idea of an 8-year presidency in the US came out of the Constitution of America that spoke about 8 years of service. Because you shouldn't give 40 years of service, because it's actually it's selfless and it's unforgiving. But if the state was to perform what it had to perform, there would not be a need beyond natural inflation every year or so, up 1, 2, 3% increase in salaries. What we do now is we're forced to overcompensate to make up. But when you raise that salary, it doesn't always equate to more purchasing power, because after 5 or 6 months, businesses are going to have to adjust.
We spoke to 2 economists in the last week leading up to this budget presentation today, both of whom indicated, and they were very financial experts and economists, all of whom indicated that one of the biggest challenges facing the economy and business on a fundamental level is crime. You just articulated the additional cost businesses have to incur because of crime. Are we underestimating the effect of crime on the top line and bottom line of businesses?
No, you're not. I mean, security. Obviously, we all have friends in different parts of the world. I have business associates in different parts of the world, and security is a line item now in a P&L. It's no longer part of general where you put miscellaneous costs, right? Right below your cost of goods and your bank financing and salary is security. Right, so it's had an astonishing impact on business, And it'll continue to do so. And it's kind of become the norm. And let me tell you something, it's inflationary. Businesses are going to pass, I mean, you may not pass on all of the costs, but it becomes part of your operating costs and part of your overheads. And you're going to pass it on into your final selling price. So those are indications of where apart from the fact that there's no confidence. Remember, safety and security is the central tenet. It's the fundamental responsibility of any government. But from safety and security, so much else comes in the confidence, social life, entertainment, new business. It all stems from safety and security, right? So apart from the fact that it hampers business from a day-to-day perspective, it hampers the country from a perspective of confidence and productivity.
But isn't it also impacting you on your customer base? If you own a restaurant, less people are likely to come out. If you have a theater production, people are tenuous about coming out because they worry about their safety. If you have a football game and you're charging at the door, it doesn't seem to be affecting the jury parties, to be very honest, which is interesting. But the brick and mortar type businesses seem to be significantly affected, with the exception, of course, of banks and financial institutions, which have primarily gone online anyway.
Yeah, well, that's it. Most businesses have done that now. I mean, I can tell you from the restaurant business, we have now that the pandemic is over and things have stabilized, we are still running about 100 and 120% higher. Now, understand what I'm saying on takeaway, right? So if takeaway was 20% of my business before, it's now 42. So it's not sales have doubled. I'm just saying. So we've lost dine-in business because it's just become so. Now the pandemic also pushed that because it's now become easier to say, let's open a bottle of wine and call some friends over as opposed to having to dress up and go out and so on and so forth.
Is that necessarily a bad thing?
Well, it's a shift. I mean, it's a shift, is what it is. It's the same way you go. You no longer get a yellow cab in New York. You get an Uber. Or it's the same way you go to Airbnb and you're booking and everything is big. I mean, even in the US now, Amazon delivers in an hour, Grubhub, supermarkets. The fact is convenience has become a major role, right? So COVID has it's made that spike, but also in Trinidad, it's a security issue. But as you said, it has not begun to affect yet individuals going out. I mean, I've seen some of the parties. I don't know how the attendance has been. And certainly, from all understanding, Carnival is already, it's not sold out close to it. So it has not thwarted the human spirit. And human spirit is important. The ability to overcome the fear and the anxiety in society, it's very, very important. So it has not done that yet. But what it may do, if it continues, is people are going to start saying, well, we're only going to go out when we need to Carnival, maybe a Saturday night. So the delivery organizations, those who have the technological angle to convert their business, but how many of the businesses in Toronto, Paul, don't have the capacity to become digital? And we're talking digital for years. As the chairman of BIT for years, we met with Central Bank, we spoke to different arms of government about digitizing Trinidad and Tobago, while Barbados has begun to do it and others have begun to do it. And now we have these hollow words again about digitization. It doesn't happen on the back of a minister just talking about it, So that's where some businesses get left behind as well.
What do you want to see in the budget that you think will help you with the labor shortage issue? I don't know if it's a labor shortage issue or a labor willingness issue, to be very honest, because I know there are lots of jobs being advertised out there and people just aren't taking up the jobs, which I guess is a concern for businesses like yourself.
Well, I don't have a specific wish list with regards to that. I mean, we need to re-engage CARICOM with regards to the free flow of persons throughout CARICOM. I mean, we are one homogeneous society from the perspective that we are one Caribbean people. It should not be that difficult for an individual who is in Jamaica or an individual who's in Trinidad to be able to go and work in Jamaica. I mean, St. Vincent, the Grenadines, Barbados, whatever the case may be. I think that would ameliorate the situation a little bit. We have to be proactive when it comes to that. We have to understand, going back to Eric Williams, the era of the development of these social programs that are no longer, those things simply cannot be peeled off like a sticker ball. Those things are here with us to stay. And
then what practically in the budget that you're looking forward to? Because I mean, at the end of the day, there's a fourth quarter coming up here that's critical to businesses like yourself, and we're moving into a new year where we can reasonably presume we can call it post-COVID.
Right. I mean, obviously the biggest issue on my table is food prices, not just from a profitability perspective, but from a sustainability perspective. The country can't continue like this, right? Even in Linda's bakery, and the baked bread business, we had 2 massive flour increases, right? Which is 70% of your inputs, right? And it's not as simple as just raise your price and sing kumbaya and hope things work out. You have to be sensitive. Good businesses are sensitive to the needs of the population. So hopefully those prices, as they seem to have, they seem to stabilize. But we have to address food security, and food price security. There are some things the government can do if they are proactive. One of which, for example, is it won't come out of their pocket, right? But they can suspend duties on certain things for 5 or 6 months, right? They can say, listen, we understand the price of let's say chicken or certain produce, things that come into the country. We can suspend that duty on the premise that they're going to come back in, but we have to give an ease to the country for 5 or 6 months. And one of the biggest things that I think they've not addressed yet is...
So if they suspend duties on chicken, how are they going to apply the fact that the intention of that is to reduce the price for the population, which doesn't necessarily always happen?
No. I mean, and that again goes back to my original point of the collapse of the state. You have to have the organizations and the organs of state, right? Whether it's the consumer affairs or whatever the case may be, that can monitor those things. And you have to have a society that has some type of cohesion among the brothers and sisters within that society to say, okay, the 60% or the 40% duty on chicken has been removed, and it's been removed on the premise that the prices come down. It's not being removed because the government has made a structural decision to do so. So it should be easier to monitor, right? As opposed to going and saying, one of the ministers last year said, well, we don't think groceries should be gouging. They should be doing the nice thing. I mean, the point is there need to be mechanisms beyond just making that assertion to be able to gauge prices, right? But the second thing, Paul, is freight on duty, right? Duty on freight, sorry. Freight prices have gone absolutely parabolic in the last year and a half. So where the government was making 20% or 25% on a container that was $4,000, they're now making on a container that's $10,000. And it's hugely impacting prices. So it's possible for the government to then say, listen, we are going to cap the duty on freight back at 2019 prices, right? So that way businesses don't have to pay, because this is pure incremental income for doing nothing, right? I was making 800 US on a container before. Now I'm making 2,000 US on a container from you, not the shippers. You're paying duty on the freight that you pay, making costs a little bit higher. So there are things that I would like to see the government do. You're muted.
Do you think now is the time to continue the reduction of the subsidy?
That's a very difficult question, because as a business person understands, the science of economics, we have to continue. But unfortunately, in Trinidad, the 50-pound elephant in the room is always government. They're your biggest competitor. They are the ones that drive the economy. And I think we've gotten to the stage where it's a two-edged sword. I mean, if you do that, there are going to be economic consequences, and we know what they are. So the question is, do we plan for 6 months, or do we plan for 6 years? I mean, great countries make business plans for 20 years, 30 years. And
you mean 100 years, like the Chinese?
Yeah, well, correct, and even more. I don't want to say 50 and 100 because people find it hard to comprehend. We make it at best over 5 years, because that's when the next time we have to get voted back in. Right, so it's a difficult time. We are making more money now, not because of production, simply because energy prices have gone up. They can pound the table all they want,
but that could change year to year.
Yeah, well, I just don't think. I mean, you talk to the experts. I don't think our prospects for greater production are very good. But again, there could be spillover from Venezuela, and we get to so I don't want to speculate on that. But the fact is, right now, I mean, we've had 6 years of economic decline, 6 years of GDP decline on the trot. You can look for rays of sunshine in between the clouds, and that's good. And I'm not saying to just premise gloom and doom, but the fact is we're in a very tough time, and I think today we're going to see more of the same thing: short-term remedies, desk thumping initiatives that may put some more dollars into people's pocket in the short term. But are we going to see the type of meaningful structural reform that we need to take this economy where it needs to go? No. I think we're going to get more of the last 10, 12 years, and the same budget debates, and nothing is really going to fundamentally change. And I think that's something that should trouble us a lot more than what fiscal measures are in the budget. So that's that to me is the bigger issue. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Mr. George, I'm sorry. A lot of the ideas and proposals you would have been making on the program this morning, has that been officially intimated to the government in terms of some of the breaks that you spoke about this morning? Has anybody been doing that?
Well, I certainly have said it, Wendell, to some of the business bodies, both collectively and individually. But you look at the spotlight on business, the spotlight on the economy a couple of weeks ago. There was no real collaboration with the business society community before that spotlight on the economy happened. I mean, there were one or two people in the audience from one or two of the chambers, and and some window dressing and so on. But given the circumstances that we're in, and you're having a session called Spotlight on the Economy, you would think that you would speak to the major stakeholders beyond the ones you speak to every day. And we know historically the energy companies are not going to, portend gloom and doom. That's just not what they do, right? You have this meeting, and they will take $1 billion in expenditure over a course of a year for recurrent expenditure, paying rent and paying maintenance and keeping things going as investment into Trinidad and Tobago because it sounds better. Right. So, and that's fine. That's what they do. They're not going to go out and say things are bad. That's not what their business model is. But there could have been some collaboration before the spotlight on the economy that the minister held, where they took some cupcake questions from the audience and so on and so forth. So I have said it, but I just I think it'll be howling at the moon. And again, I'm not going to get political here. The fact of the matter is, historically, good advice has been given. And historically, only 10% of that advice has been heeded. Because when you get advice in the private sector, which there's already enmity between the government and the private sector, it's been that way. We know that fact. I mean, I think it was Karen Teixeira came up with some just absurd comments, absurd comments yesterday about what does the business community do? Just basically similar to what somebody said a couple of years back, that all the business community does is shipping containers from China and sell goods on, it was actually offensive that a former government minister, said that. So there's enmity between the business community and the government. So I have said it, and they certainly they possess the people within the government superstructure that understands, but they now are saying, brother, we got to make money just like you. So,
but just a quick correction, though. Karen Teixeira does not speak for the government. As a matter of fact, she's very critical of the government, and she has been making some absurd comments. I agree with that.
But she always manages to present herself as a former senior government minister. So she angles it around the fact that But I was saying, as a former government minister, to speak the way that she did. I mean, I saw it yesterday. I mean, I think some of the things. I mean, they're very inflammatory, and quite frankly, I don't know if anyone's going to respond to them, but it's just not, it's just not. I mean, I think, and I have it here because I sent it to a very good economist. What has the private sector really done? We're not for the government, blah blah blah. And she said we're not taking any risks. And then what has the private sector been investing in? We have a lot of work to do, And the last comment here is it's quite we only want to concentrate on finance and insurance. We don't take any risk. We've done nothing to revitalize or improve the economic situation of the country. I mean, listen, I'm not going to get into a punching match, but those comments from an ivory tower are very easy to make, right?
Yeah, I think I understand exactly where you're coming from, because I have pointed it out. We have pointed it out on the Power Breakfast Show too. Some of the anti-business comments she has been making a lot. You know?
And she says it with such dismissiveness. Have you really owned the business? Have you put your own cap into the ground in a substantial scale and understand what the issues are here? Or you just sitting down there from a theoretical perspective and barking? I'd love to debate her. And then no one seems to kind of push back. But this is not about Karen Teixeira. I mean, she was a minister 20 years ago. So from that perspective,
we could arrange the debate in a civil manner. You know, it'll be an interesting conversation, to be very honest.
But Paul, I'm always civil. You know that. I mean,
I know that, but I mean, it'll be quite an interesting conversation.
I'll get punchy and I'll take opinions that aren't mainstream, but I certainly won't be uncivil. I take offense at certain things, and you know, those things are one of them. You can't just bark from your ivory tower and tell people what the problem is from your perspective. Give me the solutions then. Which you haven't done.
Let's talk about then the budget. Wendell has made a statement that I agree with. The budget is going to be bigger than last year. I think it is. Last year was $52.8 billion. You said earlier on the issues of the minutiae may not be as important as the policies and announcements about structural change. What kinds of structural changes do you really want to see?
I mean, the point is, you know, we've talked about ease of doing business. We've talked about some of the things that, you know, and with some of that comes the diminishing of government on the size and the scope of government. I mean, we know for years that, and again, this is not an affront to this existing government, right? We know for years that government is cumbersome. Things take a very long time. There's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy around, you know, a lot of the things that happen. And then they come out on the other hand and talk about global competitiveness, right? There is no such thing as global competitiveness when we are hampered with all types of laws and bureaucracy that have been around for 25 and 30 and 35 years. I mean, people still tend to forget that we are governed by a constitution that was written in 1976, right? That's 45 years ago, and nothing really has changed. And, you know, along the same lines, the execution of government is the same thing, right? So we talk about ease of doing business, but we don't talk about deregulation. We don't talk about liberalizing the economy. You know, we have situations where, you know, the central bank, right, which is the case, I guess, around the world as well, but not as much in other countries. They control both the price and the supply of foreign exchange. It's a very unnatural circumstance. I mean, it's almost unheard of. So these types of reforms are necessary, right? If we are ready to begin to have that journey into diversification, into encouraging people to say, you know what, I'm going to invest money, even foreign direct investment. I'm going to invest 3 or 4 or 5 million US into Trinidad. My money's not going to be trapped. But if I'm to invest in Trinidad now as a foreign entity, I'm going to put 4 or 5 million US into Trinidad on the premise that that money essentially has been converted to TT dollars. Because when I earn the money in TT, because I'm going to invest the US, convert the US, build my plant or build my business, and I'm going to earn US dollars. And then how hard is it going to be to get my US dollars back out, right? So when you think about it, someone's investing their money into a money trap. So all of those things is the type of reforms that we need, you know, to see happening. You know, those relationships like the central bank, have a more liberal economy where we begin to start, you know, allowing the natural market forces and natural market environments to direct where we go. And what government really is the referee. That's what is supposed to happen. The rules are there and you are simply the referee. What we have now is the government is the referee plus 5 players on each side. And it becomes very muddled. And I think those types of things where government says, listen, we are taking our hands off. It's not going to happen overnight. But let's begin to see that decoupling where we begin to liberalize the economy more and allow natural market forces to drive where the economy goes. Until we do that, every year we're going to sit down in front of a television, you know, and I said this is the biggest item on our national agenda. And we sit there and we just watch this 3-hour presentation.
Not mine. Just primarily a political statement which can be done in half hour to me.
But again,
I understand the politics of it. You mentioned earlier, which I disagree with to some level, that you think that a lot of the state has collapsed. I think there's certain institutions that are collapsing, but I don't think the state has collapsed. I hope I'm not misquoting you. What do you think is the biggest opportunity, and what do you think is the biggest risk facing the country now?
Well, the biggest opportunity really is for digitization. I mean, we had that window where there were guys that were really pushing it 4 and 5, 6 years ago to make the economy more efficient. I mean, we have real opportunities when it comes to that. We have Paul, I have met with many of them because, I'm a big advocate of the blockchain, not just cryptocurrency, but the blockchain for the last 7 or 8 years, and what the blockchain can do, how it could, just really revolutionize your entire country with regards to, marriage registry, documentation, all of the things that are cumbersome and difficult in Trinidad now. We have some amazing people in this country when it comes to technology and technological understanding. We have to really unleash those people. If we continue along the lines of, old school bricks and mortar businesses, which are important, that rely heavily on the national transportation grid, which rely heavily on all of the other essential services that have become so perverted over the last 30 or 40 years, we're dead. It's going to pass us by. And the opportunity for the kind of thinking that you saw, and I know this irks the Prime Minister, and it irks the government because I reference Mia Mottley all the time, but when they came about with the whole come to work in Barbados for free, come in, just get in here. What were they saying? Come in and use up all this distressed real estate. Come in and invest in Barbados and work here for free for a year. You're going to rent an apartment, you might rent a car, you're going to spend money in restaurants, and they estimated 40 or 50 or 60 million US dollars in revenue. That's $500 million where we come from. So that.
But is that a fair comparison? Because I've heard people, incredibly so, counter the seemingly what they feel is a natural comparison between Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago's economy is still doing way better than Barbados' economy in a lot of ways. And Barbados is going through another structural reform because they are also struggling. So when there's this conversation between Prime Minister Mottley and Prime Minister Rowley and the economy of Barbados and the economy of Trinidad and Tobago, they say they're comparing apples and oranges. And I agree with that in a lot of ways.
Well, I understand, but the point is, whether you're selling tractors or whether you're selling doubles, right, or whether you're taking out 100 trillion cubic feet of gas from the ground, the premise of success doesn't change. And
but you're using the word success. If you speak to ordinary Bajans, they are struggling also.
Yeah,
the Barbados economy is not doing well.
I'm not saying that.
So saying that, and yes, Mia Mottley has made some innovative and interesting statements in the public domain, and I'm not discounting her charisma and what she's done for Barbados, but Barbados is also struggling.
I understand, but Wendell's going to say to me, where are those things here? Where is that saying, I'm going to leave the traditional orthodoxy, right? And we're going to do something different. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, fundamentally, it does, because their circumstances are different, right? Doesn't mean leadership and making hard decisions and taking innovative stances and potentially pissing off one of the people in the country. You need to do it. You need to do it. It can't be vanilla. I mean, during COVID and beyond, we have been vanilla. It's the same document, Paul, every year. You're going to hear it again this year, how good we've done, how great we've done, how fantastic we've done. And the next thing with government, we are the shareholders, right? So you get all this data that's, how great we're doing, but then you don't get to get any evidence. You don't get to ask any, as a shareholder, you can't ask any questions. You just have to take it and it gets spoon fed to you, and you have to kind of rummage through and figure out what parts of it can I, get some benefit from. So I'm not putting me on a pedestal. I'm putting somebody who came in and said, it can't be business as normal. It can't be discussion as normal. And that's what I mean by that. And from that will spawn innovation and change. Sorry, Wendell, go ahead.
I'm just saying a lot of what you're crediting me and what for saying was also said by the leaders of this country too. It's just
but she didn't just say. She didn't just say. There was some action. Mm-hmm. There was action. Right? She didn't just say. And again, I think in many regards, I think Barbados became a republic too quickly. I think, you know, you have a female president, a female prime minister, a female AG. I think she took a hard left in many regards too quickly. So I'm not just have my Mia hat on saying, oh my God, they're amazing. I mean, I've interacted with her. I've done business in Barbados. You know, I chaired BIT, which was in Barbados and, you know, under the previous government. So I have a lot of interactions with her. But all I'm saying is with regards to the utterances and the actions and the ideas that were undertaken are ones that they think were necessary, right? And they were out of not from the regular dusty playbook of Caribbean government. That's all I'm saying. You know, I know things have been said here. We talk in diversification since I was a little boy in Pampers.
And I agree with you. We're going to get a lot of dusty playbook today.
Yeah, and that's what
I think the status quo. I think basically, which is what you're talking about, Peter, the status quo. And to me, there is no energy to change the status quo because the status quo fulfills the political outcomes of both parties.
Absolutely.
So they feel that there is no need to rock the boat in either direction in any way, even the innovative way. They will talk it. But I think the issue at a fundamental level, and I disagree with you. I think the entire conversation today is at the base a political conversation, because a lot of it emanates from the political arena and the leadership in the political arena, in where the country goes, in where the country facilitates the kind of innovation that you're talking about. Because government should be that facilitator, which is what you're thinking.
And even Richard, you're right. And even in terms of assessing where we are, it's political rhetoric.
Yeah, I'm grading myself. If I grade myself, right, if I am giving a report on myself, am I going to say how bad I am? Anyway, go on, Richard. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm thinking because you had the Economic Advisory Board. You had people who were giving the expert input in where the economy needs to go. What are the hard decisions that had to be made to eventually get better? And it fell apart. And it fell apart because the status quo is protected by the political elite because it fulfills them being in power.
Yeah, what I call their perverted agenda.
So So it takes incredible leadership to say, well, look, I am willing. Now, I know Prime Minister Dr. Rowley has said that he's not wedded to political power, and he's going to make certain decisions, if need be, in terms of even if it costs him politically. He said it.
Has he done so?
But that's what I'm coming to. How much of your actions in terms of getting the innovative, in transforming the Trinidad and Tobago economy, even the simple thing of ease of doing business, that conversation has been ongoing for years.
Yeah.
And governments talk about, they're improving the ease of doing business. How long does it take to improve the ease of doing business in a country of 1.4 million people?
1.4 million, yeah. And to add to your point, I know Wendell wants to chime in. It's not just the Economic Advisory Board. It's virtually every committee, virtually every Economic Advisory Board. There's been a resignation from Terence Farrell to
the Tripartite Labour Council.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at it, and you have to ask yourself, listen, I'm a citizen, and I'm going to be critical of my leadership, right? Dr. Rowley lives in my neighborhood. We've had a relationship for many years, but when you're a public official, you're public property, and it doesn't mean that I'm going to give you softballs. That doesn't mean that I don't like you. It doesn't mean that I don't think you're a good man or a competent man. That's not the issue, but I'm going to criticize, and in fact remains, if you look at the track record, and sadly this track record is not just this administration, and it's the one before, certainly, the one before, this is not, it's like a scourge, but as you said, Richard, it's like it's the old thing of being high on your own supply. The fact is, nobody wants it fixed. Nobody wants it fixed because, you mean go online and be able to get a passport in 2 days? Why do I want that when I had to collect a 500 for getting a passport or a work permit or a driver's license or a building approval or a permit for whatever the case may be? So corruption, and I've said this before, is the most efficient industry in Trinidad, right? Yeah. There's no cost of goods. The returns are astronomical, and there are no regulations that bind you, and it's fantastic. And that's what the reality is. And we face that every day, and we can't deny that fact.
But the Prime Minister himself has said exactly what you're saying, Mr. George, that corruption is endemic in this country. And when you spoke earlier on about digitization, that eliminates corruption. And I don't know that people want to do that.
Yeah.
You gather that people want to continue to depend on a paper and a pen pusher so that they can pass that dollar.
But the fact is, and the bigger issue to what you're saying is absorption. If you digitize, the fact is, this is a reality. If you were to, if this country, let's just hypothetically say you snapped your finger and all the digitization transformational efforts came to pass, you're talking about 40 to 50,000 people probably on the breadline. So where then is the absorption?
But not if you retrain them.
I understand, but where is the absorption in an economy that's contracting, right? Where's the absorption to say, okay, well, we're going to digitize there, we're going to retrain, and we're going to start all these new efforts here. So we're going to absorb at least 30,000 of those people, right? And then if you had a free flow of people throughout the Caribbean, I might say, you know what? I got a little $15,000 payoff or $20,000. I'm going to pack my bags, and I'm going to seek opportunity in St. Lucia or seek opportunity in Barbados. The way it happens in the US. If things aren't working out for you in Florida, you go pack your bags and you go to Iowa.
Yeah.
Or you go to Michigan, or you go to...
Well, if CARICOM was seamless enough in terms of being able to just do that as easily as you can. But each island has its own bureaucracy that you have to tackle. That issue of, to the credit of this government and this administration, they did create a ministry of digitization, and so obviously they see that that's an important tool in moving the country forward. So that's to their credit.
Agreed.
And this is not to the fault of this government. That's the problem with this country, because Australia did that 10 years ago. This company is it's talking about vision, as Peter said. We do it at the end of the transformation cycle. We don't look ahead and see, as you said, plan for 15, 20 years. What do we need in 20 years and do it now?
But it's still not
the whole train for a long year, and then they fight up to do it.
But it's still not. Trinidad's always been a laggard. It's always been a laggard with regards to those things. Remember with tourism, Eric Williams, I don't want my sons and daughters as bellhops and busboys and so on and so forth. The rest of the world and the Caribbean flourish. And now we're trying on a regard action to create some type of ecotourism, agrotourism. But the point is, I remember being in university 25 years ago, and there was that picture, I think, of Sintra Bronte on the wall in Jamaica in the wet t-shirt. Not 25, what about 35 years ago? Or, imagine yourself in Barbados. I remember these ads in America as a child, right? And here's Trinidad now in 2010 trying to...
We got it up, but because we had oil and gas and it was lucrative.
Well, Peter, I had the opportunity. For the first time over the weekend, I visited Cedros and the Carcass. For the first time ever in my life. I've never been down to that part of the island. And I went down, and there was something exhilarating about standing up at the end point and the Carcass at the edge of Trinidad, looking across and seeing the Venezuela and the South American coastline and how close we were. And there was something about it. And, you were talking to people in the area, fishermen in the area, and he was so full of information. And I'm like, this is a tourist.
It's a resort waiting to happen.
It's a tourist spot.
Yeah, it's a resort.
And I'm looking at Cedros and the Carcass, and their seaside villages that are beautiful but can be enhanced. And I'm seeing all of this is brand Trinidad and Tobago, and we just leave it to languish, and it's up to itself. It's however you take care of yourself in those areas, you take care of yourself.
But Richard, before we go, you have to forget one thing. We look at the headline aspect of what it is, but the reason why Tobago has been unsuccessful, and we're going to build more hotels. There certainly are enough hotels in Tobago that not require new ones. So why are we building new ones? Well, we built new ones. But you look at the dilapidation of what was Hilton Plantation into, first of all, the name should change, but that's another discussion altogether, down to Magdalena, right? The infrastructure of Tobago is not, the tourists that you want to come are going to come there because the roads, the safety, the fact if I step on a sea urchin, it's a proper hospital, the airport is efficient, the types of things that the money-wielding tourists are going to come for. So it's easy to say, well, we have this beautiful Englishman's Bay and we're going to give sandals or whatever the case may be. But the underlying substructure of Tobago and Trinidad is not ready for tourism. It's not ready. So it's more than just building it. You can build it very easily, right? And there's one in Land's End in England. Land's End.
You're saying we're not competitive, essentially. This infrastructure makes us uncompetitive.
No, but I think we're also not mentally in tuned for tourism on a whole scale level. And that it can happen, but it requires a kind of a spiritual and psychological transformation to understand that we are not going to welcome people into our island, take pride in what we do, take pride in what the streets look like. You don't go to the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos and see men half naked in the street, eating on a
and then the level of service.
And level of service and understanding. I mean, you don't, and you're not going to go to a hospital where you're treated. And I'm not saying foreigners should be treated better than us, but your hospitals are in a mess. I mean, are you safe? Is there a proper, understandable transportation grid in Trinidad or Tobago? You got to know what yellow band, blue band, green band, red band is. And that's why you go to the higher end hotels and you have the big white American cars. I'm talking about on a mainstream level. So there is an opportunity for tourism, but it's not easy. I was on a committee with Carlos John when I was a young fella in the UNC first incarnation. And I said, Carlos, do you understand with Tobago? I said, you understand this is a 20-year transformation. This is not going to happen in 3 years. He said, no. We go do this quick, we can do it, and so on, so on. It's going to boom. Good intentions. Right? He had good intentions. But what happened in Tobago? This is the fourth incarnation of that Tobago hotel. Bust 4 times. They've rebranded and we spent money. And you go there now, the place is dilapidated. The service is awful, right? And the people in Tobago, the Bob Yorks and so on, have not reinvested in their hotels. So what do we go and do? Build a brand new hotel. I don't know who's coming in now. Rosemount, one of the Rosewood resorts building another one in Tobago, or Sandals. And Sandals pulled out. Are we ever going to know why Sandals pulled out? Is the truth ever going to come out? Sandals pulled out. There's no, it didn't work out. Sandals said, there's enough of this. They looked around and they skipped town. So, tourism is easy to talk about. It's a nice headline word, but with tourism comes more than building beautiful buildings. It's also a mental thing too. But those are all opportunities for us. I mean, we have great opportunities, and we have great people. The question is, how do we get them both to merge and there be a real harmonious relationship between the governing and the governed and the all stakeholders to really, create a prosperous country. We have all the recipes, Paul. We certainly had the recipes plus mucho cash for decades. And unfortunately, we didn't deploy the cash properly, but we are where we are. So I'm no longer going to lament. I'm going to look and see how we can move forward.
Peter, thank you so much for being with us, man.
Guys, it was lovely, and we'll message us post budget.
But I was about to ask Mr. George. Is he gone?
No, I'm still there.
What position will you be taking under the Gary Griffith prime ministership?
Well, as I said, I came out as
Recording in progress.
The NTA has a thing called supporters. I'm a supporter of the NTA. I mean, I am again as a radical and as a supporter, an early adopter of even cryptocurrency when the whole country was laughing at this crazy man, right? I don't think you have to have a party card and a party allegiance and this, that, and the other. So as far as position, I'm a supporter of the party. I made it clear what I think about the commissioner, just based on the fact that he has a track record of success. I think what happened with the commissioner being removed was one of the great injustices of this country in the last 20 years. There's no question about it. But as far as position, I don't see myself in any public position, Wendell, but I will continue to speak once people want to hear what I have to say. Like I said, I have over 1,000 employees. I love this country. I have a lot in the ground in Trinidad. And I will continue doing what I can and supporting whoever I need to support, irrespective of political position, to get the country forward.
I appreciate your candor, Mr. George.
Yeah, that's my political answer, I guess.
Peter, thank you so much for being with us this morning on our breakfast show.
Good luck today, fellas. Later.
Yeah, appreciate it. All the best to you.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's get into our news brief. All courtesy, Champlain Auto Services.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
The country is in a post-pandemic hangover, with consequences of decisions made during the pandemic now coming to light. This is the assessment of entrepreneur Peter George. Ahead of today's budget presentation, he noted that corporate T&T has benefited more than the rest of the public as a result of the pandemic. Mr. George added that this, however, is being wrongfully used as a benchmark for the country's economic recovery. He said while the banking sector and food importers may have seen an uptick in income, many small business owners and individuals still face difficult situations. He also addressed the impact of crime on doing business, noting that it acts as a deterrent to investors. Mr. George also claimed that businesses will be forced in some way to pass on the cost of safety and security to their customers. He also addressed the call by unions for massive salary increases. However, the businessman said that this will not necessarily translate to an increase in purchasing power given the possible inflation levels facing the country. Meanwhile, citizens are anxious ahead of the budget presentation today, as many believe that gas prices and food costs will be affected. This seems to be on the minds of many, as News Power Now spoke with two persons on the street this morning who lamented the high cost of living. The first individual, a disabled woman, said that she was concerned with the lack of provisions for disabled persons. The second spoke of astronomical cost of living in T&T.
Like to see the government focus on the budget? Well, I want them to focus on the raising of the food prices, number one. Number two, the work. People work, the food prices rising and nobody getting a raise of pay. And even though the raise of pay it come like if it's nothing. But it's real hard. You know it's hard to go and raise gas again.
For the disabled people, a house, houses, food, and raise our rent. Because we can't afford to live out here. We get into town now, we have bills to pay, we get a nice food card. So we really need help. $2,000. And then they're buying pampers for $110 a month. Then they have light bill, then they have grocery, then they have rent. They are sending children to school.
Well, that was your news update on Power 102 Digital to 8 o'clock. I'm Afril Sintel Bob. Look out for more news in full coming up at 12 noon.
Do you need to get work done on your vehicle? Look no further than the Auto Champions. Champlain Auto Services. From vehicle inspection to shutdown service, they do it all. Champlain Auto Services. Great mechanics and technicians. Exceptional customer service with accessories galore. Champlain Auto Services is your one-stop shop. They are your Auto Champions. You name it, they can fix it. Champlain Auto Services. Eastern Main Road, opposite Carib. Call 662-6545 and like us on Facebook. Champlain Auto Services. We do it all.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right, thank you so much, Champlain Auto Services, a part in our 8 o'clock news break. Thank you so much. Check them out. They're on the Eastern Main Road, opposite Caribbean. Can't miss them whatsoever. All right. Stuck in traffic in that area, then you can pop on by. All right. Traffic-wise, Valencia Stretch, straight from the police station towards Valencia Junction. You've got traffic. O'Meara Road is heavy. Payarco straight up towards Port of Spain. You got some traffic. Got an accident this morning, and it's after Curep. All right, and it is westbound. After that, after Valsen, you're pretty clear until Barratar. They're picking up Eastern Main Road, Chocolate, Southern Main Road, Curep, heavy as well. Solo, you're clear until you get to Sugargorners heading northbound. All right. All right, so I'm going to take a quick break, gentlemen. When I come back, we will have our next guest online, Robin Naraynsingh, all right, President of the Petro Dealers Association.
We are a team. We are prepared. These are the fighters.
My Caribbean brothers and sisters, from June 1st straight to November, prepare now, not after, prepare now.
Disaster fighters. Na 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 na. Let's do this together now. Hurricane fighters.
We got fight to make it better.
Make a plan. Make a plan. Make a plan.
Flashlight, check. Food and water, check.
from them, or else you are going to end up in a problem. Disaster fighters. Na 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 na. Let's do it together now. Hurricane fighters. Let's get this together. Let's do this together now.
This message was brought to you by the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency.
Every Sunday, enjoy brunch at the Cascadia Hotel for an introductory price of only $99. Brunch time runs from 10:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Kids 5 and under, accompanied by an adult, eat for free. So bring the entire family and enjoy in this delicious feast every Sunday at the Cascadia Hotel. Don't miss out. Call 235-4554 and make your reservation now. Brunch at the Cascadia Hotel for an introductory price of only $99. Special conditions apply.
It's hot, hot, hot. Furniture Plus September mattress sale is sizzling. Get therapeutic mattresses starting from just $999. Plus, free gifts when you buy select Serta and Sealy mattresses. Available with cash and higher purchase plans. Check press and social media for details.
All right, thank you so much, Evil Twin. 21 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock, and thank you so much for joining us on the third hour of the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. Of course, our guest is already online. Good morning to you, Mr. Robert Naraynsingh. How are you?
Hi, good morning. Good morning to you, your panel, and to your wider listening audience. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you so much for being on. Of course, you're the president of the Petro Dealers Association. We have Paul Richards, we have Richard Ragoobarsingh, and Wendell Stephen.
Morning, Mr. Naraynsingh.
Good morning, Mr. Naraynsingh. And
thank you for logging in early and being so patient. We went over with the last interview, so we apologize for that. All right, budget today, and a lot of focus has been placed on the possibility of the subsidy being reduced and the consequent increase in prices at the pump. Do you think the market is ready for this? And what do you think the impact will be if it does happen?
Thank you for your question. Do you think there's any good time for the market to be ready for a price increase? I don't think there has ever been a good time for population to be ready for a price increase.
Yeah. How does that affect petroleum dealers, though? Because if it is that price goes up, I suppose one of the corollaries of that is that some motorists, if not, I don't know what percentage of motorists are going to reduce their gas. They're going to buy less at the pump. And if they're buying less at the pump, that must affect petroleum dealers.
Correct.
How big a problem is that?
Well, the reduction of revenue does cause a problem to petroleum dealers. You have to be conservative in the service that you provide, but there's very little you can really cut back because the electricity cost remains the same. Your operational costs remain the same, but the revenue stream to pay for it would be under pressure. You would be under pressure, especially if prices go up and there is not enough margins for the petroleum dealers. You will have a substandard service because sometimes, you may not be able to get the product readily in some stations, especially if you have a small volume. It will be very hard pressed for some of those dealers
to survive. You brought up the issue of margins. Can you update us? I know that issue of the margins that petroleum dealers have has been a long-standing issue. I mean, for years, we have interviewed members of your fraternity for years about that issue and how little it is. And I know the state had said that they were going to increase the margin. I think maybe 2 years ago, I think it was. I can't remember precisely. I know Minister Imber would have mentioned it, that they're going to increase the margins and stuff. Has that ever been done?
We did get a slight increase, but it still is, we just barely, not even break it even. We just under the opportunity to pay our taxes properly and stuff like that. Some dealers are really under pressure. to meet their obligations, you know, especially in terms of credit card charges and there's also the overdraft charges. There are a lot of pressures on the gas station dealers to meet that obligation. However,
is it that the petroleum dealers want a larger margin than they have now then?
Well, we are looking for at least a 15% margin on our turnover, you know.
What is it currently?
It's less than 10. It's about 7. It's about 6%. Is
that something that you all have lobbied the Ministry of Finance?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Do you expect that to be part of the budget package today?
I hope they are. You see, I mean, you have to put things in context. You know, the Minister of Finance having a job that he has, I mean, he probably is really under pressure. A lot of us on the outside think we know what should be done, but it's only when you have the figures in front of you and how you see, the thing about it is, when you're making a budget, you have to have capital. Use capital to the most effective use of that capital. And that's where you allocate capital to the most efficient use of it. However, you take money and you put it into National Petroleum hands and they pay themselves big salaries rather than updating the facilities at the gas station so that the community could get better service. And these are the things people have to be accountable for, and they just go by the wayside. And as a result,
so you don't think that the regulator is doing as good a job as they should in terms of managing that capital in that sector for the benefit of the general public?
I think we are in a very regulated industry because of the nature of our industry. We are very regulated, but we do not have a regulator. Our regulator is absent. There's nobody you can. If I have a problem and I go to the Ministry of Energy to say, look, our suppliers are treating us this way. Could you intervene to see if you can rectify the problem? There's nothing you can do about it. They just sit back and nothing is done. So as a result, we have to just go along with what is happening, and it becomes real decadent. It becomes, you know, a place where the power rules, because anybody who controls the supply has the power. You know, this is how the world is. If you depended on supplies from me, and I could tell you when you could get supplies, not when you want it, but when you could get it. I control you. And that is the problem the petroleum dealers are under right now.
Is there a tracking of the reduction in revenue in terms of petroleum stations across TNT? Like, is it that some are doing better than others? Is it that some have all decreased in revenue by 10% or 15%? Do you have any of that kind of data?
Okay, according to the Act, all those information has to be submitted to the Ministry of Energy every month. From every dealer, including National Petroleum, have to submit their revenue stream or the gas purchase and sales. And what happened? There should be a department in the Ministry of Energy to reconcile the differences, where there's shortfall or where there's overage. That, I don't know if that is being done. You see, you have to have collaboration and you have to have a system set up where people can sit down and have discourse, meaningful, artful dialogue, you know, where they can speak with each other and iron out problems. But that has not been facilitated over the past 5-10 years. And as a result of that...
You know what is amazing about this, Mr. Naraynsingh, is that Trinidad and Tobago has been in the business of petroleum products for over 100 years.
Correct.
We're one of the oldest on the planet in terms of oil and the industry of oil. And we're talking about, of course, one of the byproducts of oil would be, you know, the gasoline that we use in our vehicles and stuff. You would think that our infrastructure is at a sophisticated level in dealing with it because we've been dealing with it for so long. But the picture you're painting is that it comes across a little chaotic in my mind.
It's really chaotic. Could you just imagine in our industry, the act says there's a petroleum act that says that every gas station dealer must have a license every year, renewable every year. Do you know for the last 10 years, no license have been issued? How do you account for that? How do you operate in a society or in a regulated industry when this is not being done?
Well, is it issued or renewed? You said every year it's supposed to be renewed, but then you said no new license, no licenses have been issued. Is it? I'm a bit confused there.
Okay. Well, I mean, issued and renewed, I use it interchangeably because if you have a license and it has to be renewed every year, somebody have to issue it, right?
Okay, right.
Okay, so that's what I meant. Talking about new license, that's a different thing. There's a procedure for that. There's an application have to be made. It has to be gazetted. It has to be out in the public, and people have to comment on whether a license is issued. National Petroleum, because listen to the corruption, how corruption could take place. Because that license is not issued, National Petroleum could get up in the morning and say, look, I'm giving Mr. Ragoobarsingh this gas station to run for 1 year. And nobody could say nothing about it. And then they could say, look, they're coming to take away this gas station. Now, 9 out of 10 times, I may not have the funds to fight them in court. So what do? I just go down and give Mr. Ragoobarsingh his gas station. And NP, probably he has more money than I do. So he pays somebody some money to get that done. I'm not saying that is done, but I'm just telling you how without proper procedure, things can unfold.
But you're right, though. He does have more money than you.
I agree. No, but I'm just saying.
So you're saying that every year you're supposed to renew your gas station license. And
Correct.
to the last
Yes.
year, they have not been renewed. So
it has not been Sorry?
So what's happening then? Are you saying that these gas stations operating illegally?
Exactly. As a matter of fact, there is a judgment by Judge Quinlan
Thomas.
Yes.
Yeah.
She gave a judgment, and she said in her judgment, it is frightening to note that this situation has been happening for the last couple of years. She said she cannot. There's a judgment that we asked the ministry to issue license, and she clearly in her judgment it was really disparaging to the authorities, and I don't understand why this cannot be rectified. You know, it takes. Imagine the petroleum dealers making representation for this to take place, but between National Petroleum, the Ministry of Energy, and the petroleum dealers, we couldn't settle it. We have to go to a third party for a judge to tell them that they have to issue license.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that there is a kind of monopoly, in a sense. It's not a full monopoly, but because NP is such a powerful player in the market, and the market is not completely liberalized, you're going to encounter those kind of bureaucratic issues because NP is state connected.
Well, so this is another thing, sir. Listen, National Petroleum gets $160 million every year in the budget to do upgrades of gas station. But what did they do? They take about $34 million and they build one gas station, and the rest of the country just have to watch. You know, so that people, let's say people in Rio Claro, people in Cedros, that community is deprived of a better service.
I saw the gas station in Icarcus. It's like in Icarcus. There's one NP gas station in Icarcus, and it looked like, you know,
No,
back
but
in
I
the
mean,
time. There's some gas stations that just look back in the time when you pass them. They look as if they may have updated pumps, but they don't look very welcoming. You're like, are they getting good gas there? That's how you feel.
Seriously, and you know the country, the gas station NP is a ubiquitous name in every community. You know, it's in every community, and as a result of that, there's no pride in the community. I remember when I was a little guy, you know, going with my dad in the gas station. In the community, when they built the gas station in St. Helena, the police band used to come and play, and the whole community used to come out in the gas station to listen to the police band playing music and stuff like that. Today, the gas station is not a community environment anymore. They try to move away from that sort of thing. So that is I don't know if that's the price of development. But you know, funny enough that you would bring up that, you know, the pandemic gave us an opportunity to show who are the important people in our society. What are the value system of work? What is the dignity of work? A lot of people stay home and work during the pandemic for a whole year. But yet you had people going out, like the grocery workers, the gas station workers, the nurses, the doctors. They went out and worked. So you had an opportunity to have a reset in your country, to change the value system, to know who were the important people, the garbage man, who are the important people in our society. Now, when you're preparing a budget, that is what you have to think about in terms of how you go forward. Do we need the purchase of all this fuel to drive to work on an 8 to 4 job? Can we do it? Can we work at home to reduce our fuel consumption? These are the things we have to think about. And as a result of that, we have to put things in place. But I'm not a politician. I don't prepare budget. But I mean, this is just my simple contribution.
But you're right. After all these supposed gains made with working from home online and hybrid systems, the order was given for all public sector workers to go back out to work. Apparently, to put the infrastructure in place to have HR/IR concerns met with, connectivity, hardware issues met with, to have some sort of tiered system is beyond us as a country. So you know what? Everybody go back out. So makes no sense. You mentioned earlier on, Mr. Naraynsingh, that there's no great time to reduce subsidies. But people are now faced with significant food cost, in particular, increases due to inflation. We could go through the ladder of the Ukraine war, the energy commodity prices, the price of shipping and stuff. And now, if this materializes today, which to all indicators are that it will at some level, it will now add additional cost to the transportation of goods and services in the system, which will again inflate the prices of basic food items, or food items, let me say. And so, and I understand the difficult position the Minister of Finance is, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know?
My suggestion is, listen, look at who are the beneficiaries of this subsidy. Ask yourself, who are the beneficiaries? Do you, Mr. Paul Richards, do you want the government to subsidize you? I'm sure the answer is no. I'm sure you don't want the government to subsidize you in buying your gas, because
it's not a matter of what I want, it's a matter of what I think is practical at this time.
Let me
what I want is the government to subsidize my whole gas tank, but that's not practical at this time.
No, but you want a country, you want a people to have pride in themselves, that they can work and maintain themselves. And how do you do that? First of all, you have to build proper road infrastructure.
But the capacity of every citizen is not the same, Mr. Naraynsingh. Everybody does not the same capacity to either pay or don't pay for the subsidy.
I know, but just bear with me for a second.
Yeah, let him develop his point.
Just think about this. If you have good road facilities, you have a good transportation facilities, and the government decide, look, the fishing industry, I'm going to subsidize that to a certain extent, because people go out to fish, but not every day they catch that fish. So you subsidize that because they bring food to the country. You have the agricultural industry. You subsidize that because they produce something that is beneficial to all of us. You have the Taxi Drivers Association or the PTSC. You subsidize that because they transport people to and from work. But generally speaking, the manufacturing industry, they don't need subsidy because they go out, they buy their goods, they bring it in, and they charge you the same price as if they had no subsidy. Because if you compare the prices with in the grocery stores right now to the grocery price in the States, it's almost the same price. So who are the ones that benefit from subsidy? So the government have to decide who you're subsidizing and how you use that subsidy to make us all to have it on an equitable basis. And we have
I don't think the government can curate it to that degree, to that level. I think it's either they're reducing the subsidy or they're not. I think it's as simple as that. I think curating it to say, well, X gets the subsidy, but Y doesn't, increases a level of bureaucracy that is unmanageable and opens the door for corruption.
Well, I mean, it's all done in your taxes, in your filing of your taxes, and we all pay taxes. So if you
mean that's where they will get the rebate?
Oh, well, I don't know how, I mean, you have really people in top management like Mr. Richards and stuff like that who is in parliament. They are the ones who will sit down and discuss how these things are done. I mean, if you have good management, anything is possible,
I'd bring them discussions.
First of all, you have to have an objective, a goal that you want your society to attain. And how you get your society to attain this goal is by selling it, get people to believe in the value of Trinidad and Tobago.
My gut feeling is that nothing will be done about the subsidy in this budget, this particular budget. I think this will be as much of a feel-good budget as we have had for a long time, simply because of what the signals that have been coming out from the Ministry of Finance and the government as a whole, in terms of how they have benefited from the gas prices and the oil prices recently. That's my gut feeling. Now is not the time to put further burden on this population, especially with the messages you've been sending. So I am hopeful.
So how do you going to pay down the country's debt?
Again, the messages that have been coming is that they've been getting this windfall, they've been getting this extra income, you understand? And what they've been using it for, they've been using it to pay off debts from the previous government, they've been using it to settle debts from this government, they've been using it to try to ease the burden on the population. And that's how I see the tone of this budget coming. I may be wrong, but that's how I see that this budget coming.
But whatever befalls us, whatever come at us, I think we have a very resilient population that want to have the best interests of Trinidad and Tobago, and that is what we have to sell to our population. Because at the end of the day, we all have to survive, and we are all in this together. No one is better than anyone here in Trinidad and Tobago. So if we accept that, or we could kind of consolidate that we are all in this together, we have the resilience to move forward in many, many ways, better than most countries. We are not divided as you think we are.
Yeah, I hear you. I again, as I said, Mr. Naraynsingh, would you be willing to take some calls from all this stuff?
Sure. It's not a problem.
Because we've gone whole morning with just us talking, so let's try to get in some of our listeners now. Steve, are you there? That you can take calls? I guess not. But it's just me and you now, Mr. Naraynsingh. It's just me and Mr. Naraynsingh on the program. Everybody gone.
I see Steve right there. Steve, we wanted to take some calls. So we wanted to open up the line, Steve.
Yeah.
So we'll take some calls. 222-TALK, 222-8255. That's the number you can call. 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, You can call and also and weigh in on the topic 866-525-1099, and that's absolutely toll free. 866-525-1099, and of course, people on the web and the app, you know what to do in terms of getting your message across.
Because I'm using my phone, I can only see who's speaking at one point in time. I can't see all the.
Well, you need to change the setting. You can see all. You just need to change the setting.
I can.
Yeah, you can change it to grid. You can change it to grid. Yeah.
Well,
but Mr. Naraynsingh, part of the issue, I mean, I hear Wendell on what's expected in the budget. Of course, we have a local government elections coming up, so I assume some local government issues are going to feature. If I understand politicians at all, I assume local government issues are going to feature in some way or the other because the local government elections is due. And I don't know how much relief he's going to give, because, you know, we were talking about this earlier, Wendell, the issue of negotiations with unions. If it is too positive a budget of the state gives the narrative that they have money and things are better, then that's going to fuel unions to say, oh, okay, that's what you're saying. All right, then we don't want any 4%. We want, well, whatever they want, 10 or 8 or 15, whatever it is.
All right, gentlemen, we have some calls.
The Minister of Finance will have to carefully balance the words he uses in terms of whatever the budget is today.
Good morning.
Yeah, morning all on your guest there.
Mr. Naraynsingh.
I'm sorry, Mr. Naraynsingh, and he is the president of the
Petrol Dealers Association.
Petroleum Associations. The Petroleum Association, the dealers.
Petroleum Dealers, yeah.
Okay.
Petroleum Dealers Association.
All right. Well, I believe for years they have been tackling the government to increase their percentage. But, you know, the question here is really if it is a workable one at this point in time, and for the public to actually come up with this association and ask them to find out at least what is the government doing using the funds that were so proclaimed years ago in budgets past, over 7 years ago, with in connection with the gas tax that is being forced on the public to pay for the roads enhancement program that has never, and it is yet to, we are yet to see any improvement in that regard. So, I mean, there is absolutely nothing here for the general public in Trinidad and Tobago to really and truly put a finger on with respect to a benefit moving forward, to at least to assist the public of Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, and now I'm hearing this morning that supermarkets prices have increased since yesterday, and the associations that is so standing up. This individual that represents the supermarket association,
Rajiv Diptee.
He doesn't, like, he's under a rock or something, because he never reflects or even make a statement in regard to these things. The supermarket prices every day goes up. Every week, let's give them a week. Every week it goes up, and no one in this island is doing anything worse yet, Mr. Diptee. So, I mean, again, coming back to your guest here, what is he doing as an association? I know he's protecting fighting for his association for increases by National Petroleum, but what really and truly is it benefiting the public and the island of Trinidad and Tobago? You know what I mean? Thank you very much.
I'm not so sure how you expect Mr. Naraynsingh to answer that.
Yeah.
Because there are lots of things, even with the groceries, there are a lot of costs that are external to them in terms of what's causing the price increases. Is it that you're asking them to take a cut in their profit margins? I don't know if that's what you think, if that's what you're suggesting. But certainly, because certainly grocery prices are going up all over the world. And I know it's one of the, for example, in the United States, because they had some, they have their midterm elections coming up, and the number one issue is the economy.
Yeah.
and people groaning and up in arms about the prices in groceries, the cost of living that's gone up, and the price of food. That's a global issue. So I don't know how much Rajiv Diptee, as a businessman or the association he represents, what you expect them to do when you say think about the country. What do you mean by think about the country? What you're saying? Take less profits? Is that what you're saying?
Right, but Richard, it's a valid question because I would have asked Mr. Diptee that before, and I guess it's also relevant to Mr. Naraynsingh. If gas stations / groceries are accustomed to 20% profit every month, is it then that with the increases that they're going to decide, okay, maybe 15%, we could live on 15%. We could exist on 15% profit as opposed to the 20% we are accustomed getting. I had asked that question before, and that question, I guess, I think that is along that line the caller was posing his
that's what I was asking. Is it if that's what he was suggesting, that it reduced the profit margins?
Yeah. Is that something that is considered, Mr. Naraynsingh? Is he there, sir?
Yes, he's right.
You see, the profit margin in a gas station. Remember, we not like the groceries. We are in a regulated market. Yep. The government set the price, and there's certain things that you have to do, and it is costly to do to maintain. You have to maintain the pumps. You have to maintain the nozzle. You have to maintain, and these things are replaceable. So after so many uses, it has to be replaced. So it's not like a grocery shelf. You put it there and you pack things, and then people move it and it goes. No, we have consumables items that have to be, put in place. Now, remember, some of this is on the gas station cost, and some is on National Petroleum cost. But National Petroleum refused to spend the money to have these things updated. They don't paint the stations. They don't make it nice for people to come. So a lot of gas station dealers have to put all that extra when it's supposed to be on the wholesale margin. They have to take it out of the retail margins to do that. So it put added pressure on the gas station dealer.
Who pays the electricity bill for a gas station?
Sorry?
Why aren't gas stations using solar lighting insofar as that they are out in the open and access to solar? Why aren't they using solar lighting?
Why aren't they using it, or why
aren't they?
Well, remember, we come from a long tradition, since I remember, so they haven't been able to change the expenditure on that, We haven't had what you might call any experience in that field. I think there's 2 gas stations that have it. Brentwood gas station in Chaguanas, and then you have the one in Presal that have this solar.
Wow.
And well, the results on that is so short. It's so short space of time. We haven't really had what is the the downside for the we haven't had any of the results on that as yet.
But I think you all should look into that. Certainly for external lighting, solar lighting should be considered.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose part of it is going to be what Mr. Naraynsingh is saying, that they have very limited income to do much. So, but a lot of those NP franchises, NP is supposed to deal with those issues.
I don't know.
Am I right, Mr. Naraynsingh?
That's right.
NP is supposed to deal with those issues. So I suppose the question is, why hasn't NP invested more in transitioning gas stations to solar so they come off the grid?
Correct. Yes.
Because NP is by far the largest owner of gas stations across the country.
Correct.
All right. Robin Naraynsingh, I want to thank you so much for being on the Power Breakfast show this morning as we do our pre-budget discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I hope everything will go out in everybody's favor today. Thank you.
Yeah. All the best to you. Chat soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. Taking a quick break. Be right back.
Do you need to get work done on your vehicle? Look no further than the Auto Champions. Champlain Auto Services. From vehicle inspection to